everyone. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Cello Tip Thursday live stream. So wonderful to see you all. I hope you're having a wonderful week. Probably bittersweet because summer's coming to an end, but my favorite time of year is just around the corner, and that's fall and spooky season. Very much my favorite. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Couple fun announcements. Those of you who have been asking about Cello Doll merchandise, we have shirts and stickers for your instrument cases so you can show your doll pride. If you're watching this on YouTube, I pinned a comment in the live chat, so you can go check that out. If you're on Instagram, go to my bio link and you'll see a button you can press that will take you directly to the shop. So link in my bio on Instagram, or if you're on YouTube, check out the pinned comment in the chat. And another exciting thing that I am still incredibly grateful and excited for was I had the opportunity to play a duet with Lindsey Stirling. It's incredible. That happened last week. I joined Lindsey Stirling on stage in Moorhead, Minnesota, playing with V. Oh, thank you so much for the kind words in the chat. Thank you. So I joined Lindsey on stage with my electric cello. You all know him as V. And if you haven't seen that video yet, check out my pages. Publish the duet on YouTube. There's a full version on YouTube, and then there's a little snippet on Instagram to go watch Lindsey Stirling and the cello doll rock it out on stage. So it was incredible. Her team, her band, everyone there was so welcoming. Her crew, making sure I had everything I needed. Yes, she did also have an electric violin. That's a great question in the chat. So Lindsey Stirling performs on both electric and acoustic violins as a part of her show. For our duet, we were both on electric instruments. She played an incredible toccata and fugue in D minor by Bach. It was, oh man, it gave me goosebumps. So she did that one on acoustic, and that was phenomenal. So yes, she plays on both electric and acoustic. So I am here with Celli to demonstrate anything you dolls need for your practice room adventures. If you want to know more about what it was like performing on stage last week with Lindsey, very happy to talk about that as well. Whatever you dolls are interested in, I can tell you more about that, as well as live performances in general. And also, yes, I am on YouTube streaming right now currently, in addition to Instagram. Great question. Yes. I am currently on both Instagram and YouTube. For those of you who might not know, I do these on both platforms. So, yes, if you have any questions about what it's like to perform live, what kind of gear is needed for something outside of the classical, traditional concert hall that a lot of you might be very familiar with, we could definitely talk about what goes into playing on a big stage with backing tracks and blocking, knowing where you have to stand on stage, things like that. So, awesome. Oh, there's Kiki. I don't know if you all heard Kiki. Kiki gave a little meow. I think it's approaching her lunchtime, so she's hungry. And I think Will's on it. I hear him. But the first question in the chat, how do you manage your nerves before such a big event? That's a very good question. And one thing I wish I was told earlier on when it comes to performance nerves is it all depends on the individual. So what I tell you might help you out, or it might not at all. So I had colleagues and teachers give me tips on how to manage nerves, and when it didn't work for me, I thought something was wrong with me. Rather than my brain just perceives the world differently, maybe my nerves react differently. So if I tell you some tips and they don't work for you, that's totally okay. That just means you're beginning your adventure into live performance and you haven't maybe found what works for you. And if you have an experience that doesn't go well, take the time to sit down and think, well, what might have been different than last time? Did I get distracted by something? So what I'm about to tell you, if it doesn't quite work for you, that's okay. You have to find kind of your own bag of tricks for managing nerves. So for me, what really helps me for a big event like that is being overly prepared. Overly prepared, not just in the music. Of course you need to know your music, but also knowing what the day is going to look like. Kind of walking through the day in my head, knowing all the details, knowing where I have to be at what time, not having any unknown surprises. That really helps me to get in a zen state of mind on a concert day. And the other thing is, the duet I played with Lindsey, I played that every single day leading up to the show. I wanted it to feel so automatic. I started humming it randomly around the house. It started getting stuck in my head, and those are all good things. The more automatic something feels for you, the less likely nerves are to interfere. That's what I found with experience, was knowing the music inside and out, having it memorized, repeating what I wanted to do. I know this isn't but when I was practicing, I would also perform the duet. So I would work on technical stuff and then I would play to Lindsey as if she was standing right next to me and kind of reenact how I wanted to gesture to her, or how I might smile and we might go back and forth maybe, who knows. So pretending, kind of going through the performance, not just playing the piece up and down and listening for it, but actively performing it out, gesturing, smiling, pretending you're emoting to an audience. So really acting it out. It sounds like method acting, and it kind of is, so that when I went on stage and Lindsey was there and I went up and we started jamming, it felt like I had done it before, because physically and mentally I did. So doing that. The other thing that was so crucial has been my live performance experience in Vegas. So if you're interested in playing with an artist like Lindsey, looking at what her setup is like on stage, she has a band, she has a lot of backing tracks, she is very emotive, and kind of what can you do in your area that kind of replicates that? Can you bring your instrument and jam with a band? Have you ever played with a track in your ear, listening for cues or listening to the backing track? And I'm very lucky in that the ensembles I play with here in Las Vegas, they do that regularly. If I had done this with Lindsey 3 years ago and I had never really done that, it would have thrown me off a little bit, because playing with in-ears was something I only started doing a couple of years ago. And so having that prior experience really set me up to feel comfortable. So let's take a spin really quick and do it in a classical sense as well. So kind of, we're talking about like an entertainment type venue. Here is an idea of something that is, you can also do this classically. So let's say, okay, another great question. I get so excited when I see something in the chat and I stop talking, so I apologize. So when let's do this in a classical sense. Let's say your dream is to solo with an orchestra. Your dream is to solo with an orchestra someday. In order to feel very comfortable, you need to have experience doing that before. And you're thinking, well, that must be really difficult. Well, you start with playing your concerto with a pianist. That's step one. So you train on your concerto with your teacher. You start playing it with piano. Give a couple local recitals so you have a chance to play it with piano. Record your best concert, and then start writing to really small local orchestras saying, hey, I am a local artist. I want to branch out and do more solos with orchestras. Do you have any openings in your season for soloists? If you want to hear me, here is my tape. And you send it to, even if it's a volunteer orchestra that's not salaried, you go and you play and you start getting experience playing with orchestras. It's very rare unless you win a worldwide competition, and a lot of people don't know this right off. And it seems very daunting to go from college to soloing with the Boston Symphony or Chicago Symphony. It's very rare that can happen. So to have, oh, that's a very sweet question. Again, I'm getting distracted. You guys are asking great questions. So again, kind of building your experience up, accumulating, playing with more notable groups and ensembles. That's a way to prepare yourself for that big moment, your dream. So in the case of Lindsey Stirling, it was an amazing opportunity. I had experience playing with backing tracks here in Vegas that helped me tremendously. I studied the duet like crazy. And also, mentally going through the day, pretending like I'm performing with Lindsey. That really helped a lot, actually, kind of physically pretending like I was playing with someone else. And then, so setting myself up with experiences that matched how they performed. Whoever your pinnacle goal is for an artist, check out how they perform, what kind of tools they need, what you might need experience in, and if you prepare for it, that'll make you feel very comfortable. I saw a wonderful suggestion in the chat, which is great. Playing along to recordings of an orchestra, that's a very good tool to use. So if you're working on Dvorak concerto, playing along to, oh, these are awesome questions. Playing along to orchestra recordings. The only thing is, let's say you're playing with a Yo-Yo Ma recording, a Jacqueline Dupre recording, a Feuermann recording. You're going to hear their interpretation, and they might not take rubatos or liberties that you want to take. So you have to take that with a grain of salt, that you might not always be with the solo cello in that recording. But again, especially when you're out of school, it's very expensive to rehearse with a pianist. It can be expensive. So if you want to prepare diligently and have less rehearsal time, there are actually some pianists on YouTube who have great accompaniment recordings where there's no solo cello, they're just playing the accompaniment. And it's actually a brilliant idea. If there's any pianists out there who want a multi-million-dollar idea, you should publish an album series of famous concertos. And you can give me credit and free rehearsals. I'm just kidding. But if you're a pianist, I don't think there's, maybe someone knows, having a resource of accompaniment videos would be great. But at the same time, you need to support your collaborative pianists, and working with them and paying them for rehearsals is also a way that you support that art and that industry. So recordings will not replace a live human being, and it shouldn't. But if you need extra preparation, that's a good resource. I saw a question in the chat. Who is my goal? Who do I want to play with? Wow. Everybody. No, I have so many people I would love to play with. I mean, Lindsey Stirling was one of them. It happened, and I'm still in disbelief about it. It's still amazing. Other people I would love to play with. I think Tina Guo is amazing. I would love to work with her someday. Apocalyptica is amazing. I would love to perform or open for them someday. These are all people who I have met virtually, some in person. Just people whose careers have really inspired me as I figure out my own. Of course, my childhood heroes, Yo-Yo Ma. And I feel like I'm one of the few cellists in the world who have never met him. Unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out. I've seen him live in concert and things like that. I've just never had the chance to meet him. But he's a childhood hero. Hoser? I don't know if he's... I think it would be fun to do kind of a creative music video with him together. Definitely. But I don't know. I don't know if the direction of his material kind of matches my direction. Because I'm kind of gothic and creepy. I could be like a little creepy phantom in a haunted house and we can play a duet or something. I don't know. That'd be fun. I mean, the other thing too is I want to be very open-minded and play with people. People that I would never have thought to have played with, because that opens opportunities. But if that's kind of my ideal list. And then, I mean, there's a lot of people. A lot of the people I would love to play with are people I follow on Instagram. So if you're curious about that, a lot of the people I aspire to perform with are in my Instagram list. So, I also love Evanescence and Amy Lee. I think she's one of the most phenomenal vocalists in our generation across multiple styles. You really listen to her sing, she's phenomenal. Her voice is incredible. So Amy Lee is definitely up there too. And Lady Gaga. That's a big dream of mine, is to perform with her. She has a Vegas residency, so who knows? That could happen someday. But at the same time too, for me, the pinnacle goal would be to not just appear with these people on stage, but to work with them and collaborate with them if they need cello for their music. So not just to perform with them, but to contribute and collaborate in the best way I can to help their music include cello and things like that. So I want to be sure to get to more questions. This is all great. Thank you for indulging me and asking about my performance goals. I also think it's very important to talk about, because everyone's goals are different and some of them might seem unattainable, but then you never know. Look, someone could hold a video contest like Lindsey and then poof, you play with them. So you never know. And I think having a comfortable space where you can share what your dreams are helps you put them out in the universe, you know? Okay. I saw a question on Instagram. Let's see. Electric cellos and violins tend to sound a bit metallic and miss the warmth of a wooden instrument. How do you experience this type of sound, and how do you or the sound people shape the sound in a way that will work? That's a very good question. Any phenomenal electric string performance is the result of an incredible sound engineer. So sound engineers, we can't do it without you. You are a phenomenal resource. Befriend sound engineers too. If you have a friend who's into that. They might be able to help workshop your sound if you have a personal rig you take to live shows. But generally, sound engineers, how it works is V gets hooked up to a pack through a cable. Looks like a little walkie-talkie. And V signals go to a mixing board of the sound engineer. And a lot of stuff is digital now, so a lot of them will see it on a computer or a tablet, like an iPad. And they basically can mix your sound, like if you were editing a recording or in a studio session. So a sound engineer will try to add warmth to an electric instrument by tweaking the EQ and the reverb. Those are two of the biggest things I chat with sound engineers about. So EQ is basically taking certain pitches or frequencies, turning them up so they're brighter, turning them down so they're darker. So Celli has a very voluptuous low end and a very piercing A string. So what the sound engineer might do is turn down slightly the frequencies of the A string, kind of mellow it out, maybe do a little bit on the G and C string levels for balance, so they can kind of tweak the overall balance of your instrument. And then they will add reverb, and reverb is kind of a way of creating the acoustics we get out of the cello body, because, you know, acoustic strings are hollow, and as a result you get natural reverb. Well, you can't on an electric, so they really add reverb. And that's another thing too, is it's not to the extent of a mixer, but V has a little knob where I can kind of tweak the EQ as well. So I did that with the sound engineers. I can't remember which way it was, but they wanted it either brighter or darker. So I was able to adjust some things on the instrument too. But yes, if you hear, of course, we need to play as beautifully as we can and learn our music. If the sound quality is chef's kiss, you got a phenomenal sound engineer helping you out behind the scenes, and they're incredibly important. Another question, do you play other instruments? Well, I have cello, acoustic and electric cello. I am well versed in piano. I would never take a piano gig, but I played piano for a handful of years, kind of casually. I mean, cello was my main focus, but I took a couple years of piano lessons, and then in college they expect you to be proficient on piano, and I use it sometimes for composing and arranging. And my other, is it time? I don't know if you dolls are ready. I have a dark past with another instrument. I think it's time you dolls know the truth. I played a second instrument from grades 3 through 12. When I was a little munchkin, I just started cello. Shh, don't give it away. People in YouTube are giving it away. So growing up, my public school did not have an orchestra program. Strings, not a lot of people played string instruments. And I wanted to be involved in my music department, so they said you could do band or chorus. And I decided to do band. And I wanted to play tuba really badly. I really wanted to play the tuba, but I was 8, and they said, well, you're too small for tuba. So they put me on euphonium. Oh, that person guessed? Oh, it was a really good guess. So I played euphonium for about 10 years, actually. And it's funny because my boyfriend is a trombonist, and he was telling me apparently euphonium gets a bad rap. It's kind of like how string players make viola jokes. I guess brass players make euphonium jokes. So basically, if you don't know a euphonium, it looks like a mini tuba. It's played with valves, and it has the same range as a trombone. So I played a trombone sounding tuba while I was learning cello. Yeah, so that's kind of, I joke that that's kind of one of my dark, scandalous secrets was I played a brass instrument for a long time. And it's kind of funny because it's pretty much it's very similar. The range of the euphonium is contained in the cello. So very similar ranges. So yeah, it was a cool experience. I got to be a band geek. And I was drum major, so I was conductor of the marching band as well. So I did some conducting. Dude, I've lived many lives and I'm only 30. So more lives to explore, hopefully. Okay, there's another question. Doop-a-doop-boop-boop. Oh, Oh, such really cool stuff in the chat. Oops. Cool. Oh, another question. You guys, this is so fun. I don't mind when these Q&As are kind of personal Q&As. I think it's lovely. And I'm flattered. I'm flattered whenever anyone asks anything about what I do. To get a chance to share it with people, I think is amazing. So thank you. I did see an earlier question, and then I'll get to you on YouTube. There was a question about how do I get to sound like you, referring to me. And that's very sweet. That's a very flattering way to ask. What I'm going to do, though, is interpret that question into getting a big tone, because it is, oh, we got a little thing. Okay, we're back. We're good. Everything's great. So, sounding like me. Well, I will tell you, you can take a phenomenal cellist, give them Celli, and they won't sound like me. I'm not trying to say, I'm a phenomenal cellist. I try my best every day. I try my best to be the best I can be. But what I'm saying is, the way I interact with Celli is unique. You give it to another cellist, the way they play Celli is going to be unique and sound different. But what I will tell you are some of the most crucial things that help me with my tone quality. So, the top pieces of advice I can give you is to completely take your bow arm, your right side, and you completely give it into the instrument. If you suspend anything, you are going to have to push, and that's going to create effort and tension. So that was a huge game changer for me, was figuring out how to completely let go of everything, and to solely have the cello hold me up in terms of my right arm, shoulder, elbow, things like that. Because when you hear a big sound like that, I'm not really pushing or trying to do much effort for it. I just lay in my weight and pull that bow. Now, of course, you need to have a good bow hand technique, and you need to constantly monitor how you feel and how this looks. This side. I'll say this side is extremely crucial in your sound. And always playing detective, playing in front of a mirror, catching yourself doing this. Nope, gotta bring that down. So the more of a detective and a self-aware person you are, and you look for that self-awareness, the faster you will improve. So, and having a lower bow arm is a lot harder than it sounds. So if you can work on that, plus the second thing is flexible fingers, not having this rigid block, but fingers that flow and move with your bow. And you can start with that. You can start with that by having short eighth notes at the frog and trying to do it with your fingers and a little bit of wrist. You can also do pickups, straight, curled, straight, curled, straight, curled. And initially it might sound kind of washy and thin if you go, I know, someone said, you make it look so easy. I've been working on this. I had my big bow hand revelation when I was around 21, 22. And it took a lot. It took a lot of focus. So this took years. It looks easy now, but it took years to get here. So, so when you first start to try to use only fingers, it might sound a little like this. Then keep in touch with that elbow. Sync the elbow. Push, if I really exaggerate it, the fingers push this way and pull this way. So they lead the down bow, they push the up bow. So you can see my fingers kind of lean in the direction of the bow. They lean with the bow. So if I'm going this way, and that also requires a little bit of mobility in your wrists. So again, doing, one of my favorite tricks is to loop the thumb into your tip, and you do bow hand push-ups. Do some wrist, and then just fingers. Don't do all wrist and think you're moving the fingers. That's a great one. The eighth notes at the frog is really good. And another thing that was beneficial for me was doing long tones and scales, and really trying to imagine I'm picking up the frog in my fingers and I'm dropping the frog with my fingers, curling the knuckles, releasing the knuckles. And the thing is, if you feel like, I'm not doing this right, there's no way, but your fingers are moving. If you can get your fingers to move at all, my friend, that's already a really big accomplishment. Because I remember talking to a teacher about it and thinking, this is impossible. Like, my arm is moving, the bow is moving. How can I ensure my little fingers are moving? Everything's going on. How can I get in touch with my fingers? A lot of slow eighth notes at the frog and a lot of long tones, I found, was the answer. So let me explain to you what happens. Next, I'm going to explain what happens over the course of a long tone and what you can look for. So you can start with an open string. It doesn't have to be a scale. You can take an open string, and you want to start with relaxed fingers. Relaxed, floppy fingers. And over the course of your down bow, you start flat. You don't instantly curve. So it's not, you don't instantly do this and bring the frog in. But over the course of the bow, you're going to gradually pick up your fingers. So pick it up, pick it up. They're really, really curled at this point. They're like this. I know it's hard on Instagram. We're vertical right now, so you can't really see it. Maybe I'm gonna turn. I think I can turn a little bit. Maybe that will help. let's turn. That seems good. Okay, so you have straight. Now don't lock them. Don't point really rigidly and lock your knuckles. It's kind of like this, like a hand flip. So if you do this, like cello doll, again, really? You're telling me to practice again? Yes. You flip your fingers. That's how loose and kind of quote straight. They're straight, but they're not flexed. They're just loose. Put your bow in there. And now when I draw, I'm slowly going to curl my knuckles. Now you can see it better. One more time. Over the course of the bow, we're picking it up, curling, curling, curling. And then you release. And you're back where you started. So this is a cyclic relationship, meaning you start one way, and you eventually come back to how you started. So I'll do it again. Okay, so do your little hand flip, get those floppy fingers, put them along the frog, you're cozy with your elbow. This seems like a lot of steps, but did this multiple years, life-changing, I swear it's worth it. Okay, so we got our floppy fingers. Start at the frog. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. I'm curled. There it is. Push. Relax. Relax. And then you're back at the frog with those floppy fingers. Curl, 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 curl. Flat, flat, relax, relax, flop, flop. If you want to say it aloud like that, you absolutely can. Curl, 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 curl at the tip. Push, relax, drooping the fingers. And then by the time we get back to the frog, we have our flat and relaxed fingers. So there you go. Those are the two things I found were crucial to my tone development and tone production, was getting flexibility in my fingers and a heavy bow arm. So again, it's what I would encourage you to do instead of saying, I want to sound like so-and-so, because that's a very hard thing to do, and you have unique things to offer in cello playing. So don't deprive us of what you can contribute and the unique ideas you can make, the unique sounds you can make, but listen to someone and say, what do I like about their sound? I think that's going to lead you into a curiosity and discovery that will be more beneficial than comparing yourself to somebody. Oh, I wish I sounded like so-and-so. But now you're comparing yourself to someone, and that can be a slippery slope. So instead, ask, what do I like about their sound? And then maybe ask your teacher or work on it. Maybe watch a little bit of what they do. I bet you people with a big sound have a really low elbow. That's a pretty guarantee thing. Low, weighted, really getting deep in that string. And that's what I would offer as the most beneficial things in my sound. So a lot of bow work, and figuring out how to play with the bow comfortably and free. I am very fortunate and glad to say I don't have bow arm pain anymore. Nope. I'm very lucky that I've come close, but I'm not gonna knock on Celli. I'm just gonna gently pat, pat. I haven't injured myself. I've gotten pretty close in college, but if you can play comfortably with your weight and your support, you're gonna have so much liberation in your playing, so much liberation, and lack of tension. So I hope that encourages you. More questions. Do you write your own music? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And if you haven't, if you want a little glimpse in Cello Doll's composing brain, go check out my album, Escaping Darkness. It's coming up on its 1-year anniversary, which is very exciting. It's available everywhere: iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, all those and more. And 4 out of the 10 tracks are original compositions that I wrote for this project. So I'm very proud of that album. I'm always wondering, what can I do better next time, and what do I want to do next, and things like that. But overall, I think it's a very good representation of how music speaks to me, and why I'm so captivated by music is because of its ability to tell a story. Music is an amazing agent for storytelling. So I wanted to create an album that told a story from the first track to the final track. You go on this Alice in Wonderland Gothic quest adventure, and it includes classical pieces, covers, original songs, original pieces, I should say. And it's all tied up in one album. So yes, I do write music, and if you want a taste of that, go check out Escaping Darkness by the Cello Doll. Okay? Great things on YouTube. I just want to check Instagram. Doop-a-doop-boop-boo. Oh, this is a great question. Oopsie. Sorry, Insta. This is a great question. If we'd like to work with you, do you prefer collaboration or us having the cello part mostly worked out already? That's a very good question. I don't really have a preference. I think for you, if this is it sounds like a musical collaboration where you're interested in having cello, it's very helpful for us to have an idea, a concept of what you want. And it can be anything like, I want the cello part to make me feel like I'm about to cry. Even that gives me a lot of direction. And if you have a vision in mind, kind of imagery, adjectives, it allows me to come up with ideas and for us to workshop things. And that way we have a more efficient route into getting you what you want. And that's my goal, is anyone I work with, I want you to be 1,000% happy. If not, we work on it some more, we do it again. Great. I think it's also great if you do write a cello part. I encourage people to be flexible, because sometimes, especially because I work with a lot of composers, sometimes I can kind of read between the lines and see, oh, they want this kind of effect. Or, they're trying to make a big gesture. And I tell them, well, if we tweak, if we stay in this harmony, but we expand it a little bit, I can do this flashy fingering or soar up the cello, and that makes a really big gesture. And people might like it or say, nope, I want what I wrote. I said, fine, you got it. But I think if you have some flexibility, there's a lot of cool extended techniques on cello that I love to do when I work with people. So I think having a vision of what you want is perfect, is great. The thing I will say, and I tell people this in advance, and this is something you will encounter, I think, if you want somebody to write you a cello part from scratch, that's totally fine. Just know it's going to take a little longer, and your quote for compensation might be a little higher than just a standard recording. A standard recording job, you gave me some music, you want me to record it, great, you got it. If you want some composing with that, a lot of people will raise the fee. I personally don't do anything exorbitant. I'm not going to double your fee or anything like that. And I understand, as someone who also has a budget, I also try to be budget friendly. So if we talk and it doesn't seem to work, I try to be reasonable. I really do. Because I understand you want to work with people and you want to make sure they're compensated, but you know, we all got those bills to pay, right? Why can't I pay bills with Celli? I mean, okay, I do, but like, can I serenade the electric company and then I get free electricity or something? Can I do that? If anyone has figured that out, let me know. That'd be great. Doop-a-doop-boop-boop. How long have you had Celli, and was it love at first bow? That's a great question. I've had Celli since I was 16 years old. I found Celli. He's still there. An incredible independent luthier in Watertown, Massachusetts. Curtis Bryant Cellos. He appraises cellos. He makes cellos. He repairs cellos. He makes cellos come alive. He's a cello specialist. And he still lives in Watertown and has some of the best work I've ever seen in luthier work. If you go, tell him the Cello Doll sent you. He's a fabulous guy. And so I got Celli from Kurt when I was 16, and I decided I wanted to go to a conservatory, and so I needed my own cello. I had only been renting, and you know, it was one of those things where I think it was love at first bow, but I didn't realize it right away because it's a big commitment. And I think I was very nervous about making the wrong choice or finding something, buying it, having it be bought, and then finding a better thing and having buyer's remorse. I was just very nervous about it. My mom asked me at the time, well, can you go back to your rental cello? Is it just as good? And I didn't want to go back. So that was the answer. I wanted to go forward with Celli, and Celli has served me very well, which is great. This is kind of a sad tale. I know people who go to college and they bought an instrument and their teacher goes, yeah, it's not a good instrument. You're going to have to get another one. What? After someone has spent thousands of dollars, you're just telling, oh, just go get another one. This one's not good. And so I heard that happening to some of my colleagues and I got very nervous. But before I bought Celli, my teacher at the time assured me I shouldn't run into that problem, and I never have. I was very lucky. So, yeah. That's Celli's story. And we're coming up next year will be 15 years, actually. That's pretty amazing. Our 15-year anniversary. Oh, man. If Celli could talk, he'd tell you all my secrets. He's seen it all. We've seen it all together, man. I'm telling you. Do you compose with cello or piano? I compose with both. It kind of depends on the piece. I'll use the piano to figure out a chord progression if I want to follow a consistent chord progression. Things like that. Often I just improvise on cello too to get some ideas flowing. So I like to go back and forth and use both. Cool. Doop-a-doop-boo. Let's go back to Instagram. It keeps wanting me to open the chat. I don't need to comment. I'm right here. I'll comment vocally. Oh man, okay, I gotta catch up. We're gonna do, I see 3 questions, and then we're gonna close the questions because I want to get to these 3. You've been very patient. Any tips for modulating pressure during bow direction changes near the frog to avoid a cronchy attack? I love that word. I want to start using it. It's not crunchy. It's cronchy. Because it reminds me of Chonky, which is Kiki's full name. If you all don't know, that's my kitty's full name. Oh, thank you. One of my dolls loves my hairstyle. Thank you. I got it special for the big show. Yeah, I like the word crunchy because it's like a chunky kitty. And it's funny because Kiki's not overweight by any means, but she's round. She's perfectly healthy weight, but she's just spherical. The C and G string, is it a pinky balance thing? Modulating pressure, bow change near the frog. Yeah, this is a good question. So we want to avoid, if you want to avoid a crunch or a crunch, as our doll beautifully described it, I would have you watch your elbow first, seeing that the elbow leads the string crossing like an anchor on a ship, that it's pulling and sinking in as you change. So if I'm on the G string and I want to go down to the C string, if I don't change my elbow, I'm still using G string weight on a thicker string. And it's not gonna give us that powerful seamless transition we want. It's gonna sound something like this. So you hear that? It's okay, but there's a possibility for crackles and the delay of speaking in the C string. So as I'm approaching the frog, I go down and swing with the elbow, down and swing. So the bow arm flows together as a unit. Now granted, your wrist and hand is leading the up bow, and then your elbow's leading the down bow. So kind of wrist and fingers, and then the elbow brings you back for the down bow. So again. And the other thing too is make sure your second note, your finger has a good weight in the string. If your finger's not weighted, don't press. Don't squeeze this way. It's a pulling back this way. You weigh yourself in. Don't squeeze. This isn't going to give you security. Having this weighted feel gives you the security. If your finger's not ready, that's also going to give you a fuzzy sound. So you hear it takes a while to speak. So I'm getting ready with my 2 and it's hard to talk and play. I'm going to try to say what mentally I'm thinking about. So I'm coming in, I got my second finger. So the second finger happens, that's the first thing I do is I prep the finger before the bow, so I don't catch myself too early. And then the elbow gives me that swing and pull. So check out your left hand finger preparation and that elbow, if your elbow's leading into that sinking feeling for the C string. Very good question. That's a very particular bow steps in a process for the bow, but it's very effective. Okay. How do you manage to create a continuous long note without any micro pause during the shift between the push and pull movement? Continuous long note. The push and pull movement, I'm assuming you mean, is the bow. A way to practice it. Oh, I think I know what you're saying, where if you're holding, sometimes especially in orchestra music, they tell you to hold a note that's like 8, 10, 12 beats long. You got to break up your bow sometimes. And how to do that seamlessly? Again, that finger flexibility where I talked about earlier in the stream, over the course of a long bow, having supple fingers will help you. Another trick is when you're at the tip, I'm going to scooch over for Instagram. So this is the only time I will tell you to lift your bow arm elbow. The only time is when you want to put weight into the tip. So the tip is very far away, but if you lift a little bit, it's kind of like a seesaw. It's going to pivot your bow tip down and give you a little more weight, just a little more weight that you'll need. So instead of kind of pulling, if you're super low, your weight might come out of the tip. So that's a little trick. My most recent teacher taught that to me, and I was thinking, this goes against everything I thought I knew about the bow, but it really helps. And the one condition, he said, well, you got to make sure you don't stay high and up. When you're done at the tip and you go back, you're low and cozy again, like it never happened. So that's the one condition. If you raise the elbow at the tip to get that weight, not have the sound die away, not have a gap. Got to make sure it closes right back in when you're done. So, man. Instagram, bring back horizontal videos, please. You think they heard me? Probably not. I didn't think so. So in the last 10%, you lift, and then you're cozy at the frog. So what I just did in the middle is also an exercise you can do for the bow arm, where you play short, squeegee, but gooey like taffy, eighth notes at the bow. And practicing having the elbow a tiny bit higher and listening for that seamless connection you want, because you're basically just practicing the transition you will eventually need for the longer bow. Hope that helps. Again, if you lift it up slightly, make sure you're low and cozy by the time you get back to the frog. If you do this, that's a big difference. And you're suspending all of this weight, and you're not able to get as deep in the string as you can. So make sure you come back in being low and cozy. All right, our last question of the stream. Also, thank you all so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a very fun stream, and I hope you all are enjoying it as well. Okay. Oh, Instagram, you got me again. You got me again. All right, you guys are so welcome. Y'all are so polite, saying thank you in the chat. That's so sweet. Well, thank you for the thank you. Okay. Do you have any tips on how to play musically Bach Suite's 6th Prelude? The Bach Suite number 6 Prelude. Of course. So, for those of you who might not, if you need a refresher on the Bach 6, it's the one that starts like that. And kind of a general rule for Bach that I think will really help you. Don't play all the notes with the same dynamic, the same amount of intensity, the same color. There's a lot of options in how to phrase Bach. There's a lot of possibilities. What I would say, the wrong answer, there's not that many, but a big wrong answer is to play a Celli mezzo forte start to bottom Bach. Don't do it. I've heard it. It's not entertaining. So that's a big one. And for example, what I would encourage you to do is look for the moving material, the moving lines, and give less attention to repeating notes in Bach. So in that very opening, I know it's just a short segment, but we have a lot of open D. There's kind of a D string drone happening. And during it, there's an arpeggio. You want to bring out that arpeggio, so I would practice where I really have very different dynamics. Now you can hear more of the moving line and not just a ringing D string. So really listening and kind of analyzing the music and seeing what's moving, what looks interesting, and what's repetitive. Because sometimes a big thing, I'm going to make up something for the sake of time, but sometimes Bach will have something like he does a lot of stuff like that where you have this flowery thing on top that sounds busy, but it's constantly repeating. The lower stuff is what's moving. You know, something, I don't know. That was just kind of a quick makeup in my head. But you want to listen and look for stuff that, now the only time you want to bring out something that's repeating is if the last time is very different and harmonically drastic. Like there's a big accidental or something. But if it's just kind of repeating, you don't have to give it a lot of attention. The other thing I will tell you, and someday I really want to plan a vlog series on analyzing Bach cello music. My last teacher opened my eyes. He's an incredible, he has an incredible mind, and he analyzes Bach beautifully, and it's incredible. And I really want to pass along a lot of the things I learned by working with him on Bach. And kind of one thing I would encourage you to do in the 6th suite, I mean, you can do this in any of the suites. Look for, Bach often writes in 3 voices. There's a high part, a medium part, and a lower part. The most famous example of that is the opening of the entire suites, the G major Prelude. It sounds like a chord, but it's 3 voices that's moving. You have low, medium, high. Oh, that was my voice. You have low, medium, high. Now, the medium and high voice moving from and then eventually so you have these three voices that kind of move around. In the sixth suite, you'll find examples of that. Let me quickly, before we go, let me see if I can find a quick one for you. But if you can start finding, well, let me see. I want to find one that's, it's hard because it's not always easy to find multiple voices, and sometimes there aren't. Sometimes it's just one playing a beautiful melody. Okay, here's one. Right away in bar 3 of the 6th suite Prelude, you have so if I were to play it all equally, it's going to sound like this, okay? That's pretty. But Bach has a tendency to sound like a lot of notes. Just, you don't want it to sound like an etude. But if you only play the A string, now how did I find that? You come back to the first note, you have a B, and then you play the B again. Same with the A. So Bach will take a voice, have something going on underneath or above it, and then connect it back with a repeating note. So look for repeating notes in close proximity. That is a little clue. He might be switching between voices because he uses the same pitch to connect ideas, to connect the higher voice. We have a couple stuff down low, and then we return to the higher voice. I'll play it again. And how you can bring it out is with dynamics. You can bring it out with dynamics. There's no right or wrong dynamic. Just pick some and see what you like. But I'm going to grossly exaggerate the difference. Now if I flip it. Okay, so that's a little snippet into some of the things I want to put in this vlog series someday, because I think it's incredible. And I was telling my teacher this, and he goes, "It's not me, it's Bach. Bach did all the incredible things. We're just talking about what's already there." He's such a humble teacher. Yehuda Hanani, if any of you dolls have worked with him or know that name, Yehuda Hanani, incredible musical mind, phenomenal cellist and human being, very generous, currently in New York City at Manus. So yes, thank you all for a fabulous Cello Tip Thursday and coming in with your questions. It was really fun to talk about the Lindsey Stirling performance with you all again. Again, if you haven't seen that, it's on my Instagram page, pinned at the top. And there's a full version on YouTube where I come out, she introduces me. I say hi to the crowd. So there's a little extra footage on YouTube. You can check that out. And again, thank you so much for joining. I hope you all have had a wonderful summer. And prepare for spooky season is coming soon, my favorite time of the year. Celli and I want to do some fun things to prepare for October. So we'll see what happens, how much we can get done. But again, thank you so much for being here. It's so fun to stream for you all and to share things with you. Again, if you are interested in some Cello Doll merchandise to treat yourself at the end of the summer, If you're on Instagram, go to the link in my bio, click on that link, and you'll see a button for the Cello Doll shop. Take you right to it. On YouTube, I have pinned the link at the top of the live chat, and I will also include it in the comments of the video. And also, if you dolls would like, again, you see it on YouTube, you don't see it on Instagram. If you go to the link in my bio, there is my Venmo and PayPal if you would like to leave a tip. I always want Cello Tip Thursday to be free for you all, some free advice and encouragement for your practicing. If you would like to leave a virtual tip, that's totally up to you. But you can also do that via the link in my bio or with the information in the YouTube video. Thank you all so much for being here. Enjoy the weekend, do something fun, and I will see you, of course, on socials, but live at the end of September. Thank you so much, my dolls. Bye-bye.